start with everybody what your path in was, how you got into this crazy business.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, here's a story I tell at general meetings, which for people that don't know, if you are a writer and you have a script people like, that script gets sent out, and you end up meeting with development executives, producers, maybe you're going after staffing for TV shows, and they ask you this question. So this is my answer. I was a child who was not good at anything. I wasn't good at anything. I remember watching people that were good at things and almost seeing that Renaissance halo over their heads as they sang or played basketball or got A's or whatever. And I wasn't that kid. I was really quiet and shy and awkward. I loved reading books. I loved watching movies, but I wasn't like actively good at anything. And I got really lucky. My sophomore year of high school, the theater teacher started a playwriting class, which is essentially like an independent study at that school. Like we got put in the library for a year, and at the end you're just kind of come out with a play. It was very, very loosely formatted. But I fell in love. I really fell in love twice in my life. Once with my husband and once with playwriting. And I don't know if anybody remembers these or has seen these, but they used to have these best American plays year by year. They did them from the 20s, 30s, through the 80s. And my dad, I think he was excited I was good at something, bought me a bunch at the Planned Parenthood book sale. And I just read. Anyway, so I started writing plays and putting them on, and that's essentially how I got into UCLA. I got in because I wrote plays. I got into the theater department. I would not have gotten it based on my grades. And I went to UCLA and wrote more plays, and then
well, just go back to putting them on.
Yeah, I would direct some. I
Where?
I was
in the backyard?
No, it was our school's theater. It was sort of if nothing else was going on, I'd ask permission or ask beg, and I think let me think if there's any. There's only one or two, but I got lucky also, and they still have this. They have contests for teen playwrights. They used to have one in New York that Stephen Sondheim did, but they had one in LA that I still help out with. The Blank Theater does it, and so I was kind of doing $5 productions at our high school theater during the 2 weeks nothing else was going on, but also I ended up winning a couple of these things. So, and that was again, this was such a whiplash for me because I was not a trophy kid, so it was really exciting and cool to finally be good at something, kind of. But yeah, it was sort of a mix of that stuff.
Okay.
And then
so you got into UCLA.
Got into UCLA, and I went there and would just yeah, again, I kept writing plays, rehearsing them in a stairwell, in a corner outside somewhere, just wherever, being really I don't feel I'm that scrappy anymore, and I for as much as I don't know, I've learned a lot over in my time on Earth, but I really feel I admire that past version of myself that was so scrappy and just would put things on and didn't care if they were good or not, and didn't care if there was rehearsal space or a theater would just find a way to put it on. But that was college, and then my senior year, I just I applied for the film school, for the graduate film school, just to try, just to see, and got in. And so I got my MFA at UCLA in screenwriting. They were just starting the television showrunning program that year. And then it was a decade of tutoring, and I wrote for a bunch of websites. I sort of did online journalism. That's I think a very polite way of saying what I was regurgitating celebrity news and writing 3 jokes per 700 word piece about Justin Bieber's hair. So it was very and it was honestly the worst I ever felt about myself was because I felt I was contributing nothing. I felt much better tutoring because an hour in, I'm cool, I think this kid understands grammar a little better than they used to. Versus nobody needed this piece about Taylor Swift's whatever. It was just
I get it.
so that was a moment. And then when I was writing like TV script after TV script and like screenplay after screenplay, and like kind of coming close and almost this and almost, I mean, like, I think a lot of people in this room probably know that feeling of just the stars not quite aligning. And then I wrote the pilot it was then called Widow. It is now the first episode of Sorry for Your Loss. And look, I was proud of scripts before, very proud. I mean, there are things I love. By the way, there's things I wrote before then Widow, now Sorry for Your Loss, that like actually might end up happening, which is like very weird. Like it does feel like one or two scripts like might actually be resurrected from the dead, which is exciting. But that script felt like it just had like pixie dust on it. I know exactly where it came from, biographically and just emotionally. But it also did feel like this idea and this character and this world kind of landed on my windowsill. I just kind of like lifted my window and like took it in and wrote it. And I'm sure like, to give everybody the context, essentially my show is about a young woman played by Lizzie Olsen, whose husband dies very unexpectedly, and it's just about her and her family and him and his family, and just really about her as this woman whose life is over because her person is dead, but her life can't be over because she's still alive. So where does she go from here as a series? And her husband is very much a character. The past is very much a character, and it's a half-hour drama with, I think, jokes. Not everybody does, but I think it has jokes the way life has jokes. Anyway, sometimes. To give you context, I wrote it. Am I getting ahead of myself?
No, you're fine. Because I was about to ask how you got that, where that came from.
Cool. Well, then I'll just roll
So
right into
roll in,
questions.
yeah. I'll go sit down.
No, it's okay.
No, carry on.
I'm sorry.
No. Because that was really your first big break. Right?
Yeah, I'd staffed. Yeah. So I mean, I wrote this pilot and I staffed thereafter. But it was writing this was some people call it your golden sample, your golden ticket, or your there's like different names for it. But like it is that script. Oh, some people call it the undeniable script. Like it is that thing. It is like you write one script that really, really works for people. I mean, like, the hope is it came from the same, as a writer, as a craftsman, woman, person, you can do it again, but you really just need one to break through. You need one script that really resonates with people, and that was mine.
But can I just say,
please, yeah.
Usually I've found with the people who've sat here and in everything that I've learned, that one script doesn't come until you've written a whole bunch of other scripts.
Yeah,
and yet there is this sort of myth out there that like I'm going to sit down on a weekend, blurt out my guts into a page, and there will be the mythical script.
Right.
But it comes with a whole lot of work beforehand.
Yeah, like a whole lot of work, life experience.
Right.
I mean, I just had to go like knock around, write a bunch of scripts, and also just go live my life for a long time before I was able to write that. Yes.
But
absolutely.
also have a certain command of craft.
Yeah, that too.
It doesn't just emerge.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
No, please.
So you wrote the golden script.
I wrote it. So to give you the context, this was end of 2013, beginning of 2014. So Transparent was a pilot, but not yet a series. Like Girls and Louie were on, but they were still called dark comedies. You could be a dark comedy. I think Veep might have been on then. You could be a dark comedy. The idea of a half-hour drama made no sense to anybody. And I wasn't trying to invent a genre. I just knew that's what the script wanted to be. I knew this was like a chamber piece, a couple of characters. I knew that there wasn't some crazy engine. It wasn't, it wasn't a big, Game of Thrones, Westworld world. It wasn't a Grey's Anatomy, Law and Order, solving a crime. It wasn't a big soapy, Who Killed JR. Like it was just a tiny human piece. And I felt like it wanted to be a short story in script form. And I felt like this series, if we got to do a series, would want to be short stories in that same way. And it's weird because now everybody wants half-hour dramas. Like the zeitgeist truly has risen up to meet us. We also, I think that one of the more common refrains in our Facebook comments is that episodes aren't long enough. And I'm like, oh, you watch an hour where there's not enough plot, and you like all of a sudden they're way too long. In any event, so I wrote this, and I spent a year taking. Do you want me to just go through the whole thing? All right. I spent a year taking meetings with producers who said they loved the script, but they didn't know how to position it, which means the art was working for them, but the commerce they didn't understand, because again, people are sticking millions of dollars in this thing, and they get nervous when they're sticking millions of dollars in this thing that is an unproven creator, it's an unproven genre, it's an unproven subject. At that time, people were still very nervous about a show about grief and death and loss. The idea was, oh, people will think this is depressing. It's never been done before because it's depressing. I think what we found after making 2 seasons is people actually find it very cathartic, and a lot of people have felt a lot less alone in their, whether or not they've lost a spouse or even a primary person in life, just watching someone navigate pain on screen with humor and resilience and hope, but also being at that rock bottom and being that in that rock bottom in a very real way, I think makes people feel seen and known. But that just wasn't a thing. These producers, no one had a crystal ball. No one had seen that done before, quite like we were going to do in this show. So it was a year of meeting with producers and just hearing the same thing over and over again. And a few producers saying they maybe want to do it. And then I met with, who is today my non-writing producer, Robin Schwartz, who was then at Brillstein Entertainment, which was it is a management company with a producing arm, who she was in charge of their TV department, and I love this so much. She was like, oh, I don't care about positioning this. We're just gonna make this. We're gonna make this. Like, over my dead body, do we not make this show? Like, I'm gonna make the show with you. And I was like, great, let's cool. So Brillstein is a management company, like I said, and so they had access to actors and directors. Elizabeth Olsen, who is called that on IMDb, but is not called that if you actually know her as a human, was a client and is a client still. And she got the script and she read it and she knew she had to play the character. And we sat down and talked for an hour, and then I knew she had to play the character. And then from there, James Ponsold, who's our producing director, directed 4 episodes. He's an EP. Directed 4 episodes season 1, 2 episodes season 2. Had a similar response when he read the script. He sat down. We had a long conversation with me, James, Lizzie, and Robin, and he knew he had to be a part of it as well. So it was a little bit of like a Wizard of Oz journey, where you're kind of collecting people along the road.
Because you had no home at this point.
No, right. You know home. And this was, by the way, even the past couple of years. This has got. I think by the time we go to, because we took it out twice. So by the time when we took it out the first time, it must have been. I think 2016, 2016. So even then, like, everyone was afraid to take a project out unless there was an attachment. You really needed a star, a package. I don't want to jump the gun too much, but I'll say now, I've actually heard a lot of places, or a lot of people get nervous about packaging a script because there are so many places to sell to. You don't want to commit to, I'm just gonna pick a random actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, like, I mean, I'm saying, like, he would never do TV, but I guess everyone would do TV now. Yeah. But, like, you don't want to commit to him because what if HBO doesn't want to work with him? And HBO might pass on your whole project, even if they would have loved the script and they would have loved to put, God, I don't know. I was gonna say Ben Affleck, but there's no way HBO would like
John Hamm.
Sure, John Hamm. They would have said yes to this thing with John Hamm, but no to Leo. So it's actually because of the amount of buyers at the moment. It's actually a riskier proposition to attach. I've heard, and by the way, that could change 6 months from now. Like, these things are always in flux. But at the time, that was the thing to do. Was you had to have, especially if you were like an unknown like me, you had to, with a script that was risky, you had to have something proven attached, and that was Lizzie and James. And so we took it out, and a few people put their hats in the rings, a few buyers, and we went with Showtime, and we developed with Showtime. They were great, but ultimately, Lizzie, I don't know if most of you know probably she is an Avenger, and Marvel owns her heart and soul, and schedule specifically. And she's got these windows of time, and Showtime just was not able to be on our timeline. So the clock ran out. We weren't able to make it work with them. We got the project back and took it back out again. And some people that had said yes before said yes again. And a few new buyers had emerged, and Facebook was one of them. And it was interesting because they were both a household name. One of the let's say the one I'm trying to think of like the diplomatic way that'll be on YouTube, the way of saying this.
They're well known.
They're like one of the most powerful and influential companies of our time, and also were complete novices to TV. So there was this risk involved, but also I did feel, and I told Robin this, like, wow, what it would be great to get to be a flagship the way Transparent got to be for Amazon, the way Orange/House of Cards got to be for Netflix. That would be great. And here was an opportunity to do that. A few things. They gave us a straight to series order versus I think other places want to do a pilot or mini room or like commission a second episode, which is, all things they'll do, but to have someone guarantee you a season, and we were taking our Showtime budget over, so we knew we'd get to make our Showtime show or our cable premium streaming show at Facebook, and also I knew I'd be making it at a place that, look, my personal experience, I can't remember the last time I heard about a death that wasn't on Facebook. It was years and years ago. I mean, like it's been a while since I've. By the way, it's been a while since I haven't heard about a birth on Facebook or a pregnancy announcement or a sonogram, a proposal. I mean, like I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's the largest public square in human history, and I'm not trying to be like a walking advert for Facebook. It's just the truth. It's this place where all these things happen, where life and death happens, and so to make a show about that. On the platform where all that was happening really felt like meeting message in a really powerful way. So we said yes, and that was 2017, and then January 2018 we started the writers' room. March we started shooting. The first season came out in September of 2018, and then we repeated the whole thing this year. February we started the writers' room for season 2 of 2019. Started shooting in June. The whole second season's out right now, and we're waiting to see if we're going to get a third season pickup or not.
When do you find out?
I don't know.
Yuck. So talk to me, I guess, before we agonize about that. Talk to me about the writer's room, because you were set up, also being an unproven talent, you were given a high degree of creative control, being a showrunner out of the box.
So I had, just to be clear,
No.
I had partners both seasons. I had one partner the first season with more experience who really helped me, and I had a second partner who co-ran with me the second season, and this was wonderful. He had a couple of things in development, and one of them went, his limited series he's doing for USA, got greenlit. So I was lucky and grateful that we got to keep him basically through production, but he started kind of phasing out after that. So he was there for some of post, but by the end it was just me, which was both. I was proud. It's great to captain this ship that I've created, but also, I miss my partners. I miss my show friends when they're gone, and it's both really exciting to have someone whose career you're so invested in and who's been such a great partner to you get their own thing, but also it's sad to say goodbye,
So what's it like running a writer's room first time?
Look, I think every writer's room is its own ecosystem. Like, I don't think there's such a thing as any two writer's rooms. They're maybe similar, but not the same, certainly. Look, I had been a staff writer. That was my only experience in the room, and so it was this very whiplashy, weird transition. When you're a staff writer, your whole job is trying to get inside your showrunner's head, your creator's head, whatever. Sometimes they're the same people, sometimes they're not. You're just trying to get inside their head, try to figure out how they think, trying to anticipate their needs. So you're trying to think like they think, because you want your ideas to be accepted and embraced.
Right.
Whereas when you are the creator / showrunner, everyone's trying to get inside your brain, not just your writers, but your production heads, your actors, everybody's trying to get inside your head. It's a very unsettling feeling to go from having been this person to being that person, especially because I think it is an enviable thing to create a show that's on the air, especially one that gets a lot of critical love. And so I think there is sort of this feeling that everybody's like looking at you thinking you have it made, when in reality you are, you know, on any given day, you can feel very scared or worried or anxious, like a fraud. You can feel very lonely, and you say, like, you know, lonely is the head that wears the crown. It's very true, even though I think any of my writers would love to be a creator and showrunner and have their own show. The thing is, they get to all be at the same level and commiserate and like think I'm an idiot sometimes and whatnot, and I have nobody to do that with. I just gonna have to like, I mean, it's kind of like the beauty and the burden of being a boss, right? It's great, and I wouldn't trade it, but it can be very lonely, especially when I don't have the answer. But running a writer's room specifically, it's a think tank, right? And it's the way I try to run my writer's room is I really want and I pick my writers very, very carefully. I would not hire someone unless I loved their script and really felt like they would add, if they'd be additive and specifically add value that I can't add on my own. So the jigsaw puzzle of that, even putting the room together, is really putting people who are, I think, brilliant on the page and also in the room I really feel a connection with. I really feel like, oh, we're supposed to work together. We're supposed to be teammates. But then once the room is in session, for me it's really important to make sure everybody really feels heard, that everyone really has the floor and is supported. And I think there are some showrunners and creators that kind of, they hear an idea and they just, and it's not for them, and they just kind of like wave it off immediately. I really want to make sure, sometimes even if at the outset I don't agree with an idea, it wasn't what I was thinking or wasn't what I was anticipating, I always want to make sure that I really understand where the writer's coming from. Because by the way, like, there have been things that initially I feel like that's not the show, that's not me, and then once I get inside and around the idea and like fully understand where that person's coming from, it went into the season. Like so I want to make sure that I understand them fully.
Well then who? Let's just go back a step. Who? When you say you choose your writers carefully, so how many writers? I mean, is it like kissing frogs? I mean, how many do you go through before you select? Do you have a whole bunch of meetings? You read a whole bunch of scripts, and are you looking for something, or like, well, we need this sort of writer to fit? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, I don't have a whole bunch of meetings. The first season I probably read like 200-300 scripts. I didn't do that second season. I had the studio curate more, so it was more like I probably read somewhere in the 60 scripts. And each season depends on who's coming back and who's not coming back. Because once I know some of the first season, it was all variables. There were no known quantities. There were no constants rather. But I hope certainly that if we do get a third season, that I would have some people come back. So from there, it would be filling in gaps versus creating something whole cloth. And if I had a season of a different show, let's say, first season of a different show, at this point, I know a lot of writers, and so I would be able to say, oh, this person from Sorry for Your Loss I think would be a good fit for this show. This person I've never gotten to work with before, I would of course vet them and call their other showrunners and you know, really get a sense of what they like to work with. But I've met people in the staffing process. I've just met people through the WGA and things like that, where I just have my eye on certain people, and I feel like we would work well together, and we should be teammates at some point.
Is there anything you look for when you see a script, or that puts you off or turns you on? That you're like, oh no, like I can tell after a few pages they're not going to fit. Or are there any? Do you have pet peeves, or you have like things you like in writing?
Yeah.
Because you're talking to a room full of writers who would kill to be on your writing room. So.
No, well, that's very kind. I appreciate it.
I mean, I'm assuming, right?
Look, I look for things that are deeply personal, original, emotional. and really that can take a lot of forms. I'm thinking about the samples I staffed off of this year. I staffed off of a play and a short story. I never read either of those writers this year. I never read a TV sample by them. The short story writer, I should say, is has a whole career in fiction, is established in that medium. Same with the playwright, but they weren't the tone of the show. It wasn't, they weren't like slice of life, half hour drama-y. One was essentially, the play was almost it was like a gothic ghost story, I would say, and the short story was speculative fiction. But in both situations, I felt the beating heart of the writer on the page, and so it wasn't about genre or dialogue or is this person the show. I fell in love with the voice, and I wanted to meet that person. And I was hopeful that they could write a strong, shootable draft of my show. And here's the deal: I don't like to rewrite writers. I really, really love for someone to turn in a draft of their episode that really works for me, and then if I'll have feedback. I'd love for them to be able to either have a conversation with me and maybe some feedback I end up discarding because they make their point. Others I say no, please do this, or I will later in my pass. But I'd love for them to turn in a script that really works for me that I can send to the studio. That doesn't always happen. I do have to rewrite things to make sure that it feels like the show and that I can stand behind this thing, because ultimately they're not going to yell at the story editor when they don't like an episode. The critics and the audience are not going to yell at my mid-level writer. They're going to yell at me. So even though I don't like rewriting people, I do have to for the art of it all. I also know that the buck does stop with me. If a head is going to roll, it's going to be my head. I went down that spiral. I forgot what we were talking about.
Well, you look for in scripts, so you fall in love with the beating heart of the writer. And so it doesn't have to be a TV. You don't need a TV pilot. You don't need the necessarily structurally sound. You're looking more for the horrible word, the voice sort of thing. Yeah,
I'm looking for something that's deeply personal, where I need to know the human that wrote that script. And I will say, I read 10 or 12 scripts this year that I had a really hard time remembering who wrote what, because they all kind of felt like Girls and Insecure. They were all coastal, millennials, kind of dealing with, city life and city problems and dating and friends. And that's not to dissuade anybody from writing about that. It's just to say, there is a lot of that out there. And I was like, okay, which one is the one where she gets stranded at Joshua Tree, and which is the one where her roommate's vibrator ends up in her bedroom? I couldn't. I felt badly, but I could, if I received both scripts tonight as samples, I would be able to say, oh yes, this one that takes place in the world of now I'm forgetting the proper terminology, but going into these
developments
and the legalese of it all. And this one is it's the dark. I could actually I know which drawer I left those scripts in my brain, because the worlds are so specific. But again, that's not to turn anybody off from writing something that is coastal and millennial and takes place in cities about dating and friendship. You can do that. Just know that. And here's what I will also say about that. There was one script that I did remember very clearly, because it was the main character was a bisexual man of color, and he was feeling deep feelings for a man and a woman in his life. And there was this real love triangle there, and so it was. I could say it's coastal and it's about love and life and Los Angeles, but because that was a triangle at the center that I had never quite seen before, and that was really the core of the pilot. I remembered where I placed that one in my brain. So I feel gross being have a memorable log line, but I think execution is everything. Execution is the beating heart I'm talking about. It's the voice, the soul of the script. But it's also, what is your contribution you're making? Your script should feel like a contribution to the cultural canon. It shouldn't feel like, please staff me. And I think I made, no, but really
No, you're absolutely right.
Of course, everybody here is hungry. Of course, you want this badly. I totally get that. But you really have to look at your script and go, is this thing making a real contribution? Not like, is it good enough to get me staffed, but does this thing feel like it needs to be? Like the people need to read this, need to see it. I think there's Game of Thrones and there's Westworld, but this is an epic fantasy or work of epic speculative fiction that is wrestling with something profound and human that I haven't seen in a modern context at all.
Well, I'll say that too from my experience reading scripts. There's a lot of, and in our world, in the screenwriting, the outside. I like to say in here that we're like the zombies trying to storm the castle.
Yeah.
And you're inside the castle.
Yeah.
So the rules are somewhat different once you're inside from when you're outside. But there seems to be a lot of books and time and energy spent on worlds and story and all of that. And what I find when I read scripts for the competitions is it is lacking that bit that you're talking about, the most important part. It's like, why is this existing? Like, clearly people spend a lot of time and energy thinking through these worlds and coming up with these characters and what they're going to do with them, but not enough time on how they're feeling about what's being done and what aspect of the human condition this piece of work is exploring.
Yeah.
And so many times I'll read a script and I'm like, I don't know what you're exploring here. I don't know what it is you want me to feel or learn or come along on the journey. Sure, you're great at writing action scenes and that's awesome, but it's like, it's like that thing.
I agree, and I think I read a lot of scripts that feel like they are raising their hand hoping to be picked, which I totally fucking get. Like I don't want it all to your zombie storming the castle and being inside the castle, like cowering under a table somewhere. Like I totally no. I get it, and the last thing I would ever want to do is to dismiss that feeling, because it is a completely understandable, valid feeling. But people don't want to, especially, I'm just talking about TV, but I do work in features too. As a showrunner, I don't want to hire somebody desperate, even though we're all desperate. Like I want to hire somebody curious and excited and full of life and passion and work ethic, and I want to see that on the page, And I would say when I go in, I usually just go out for open writing assignments for features, but I actually sometimes I have a graphic novel I'm adapting for somebody, so I guess I'm doing that as well. Or it's my graphic novel, so I'm adapting my own IP, which is a whole other weird thing. In those pitches, it's the same thing. I see when it's reversed. I'm not hiring anymore. When I'm being hired, I see they don't want somebody coming and begging for a job. They want someone coming in and showing them everything this thing could be, and like getting them lit up and reminding them why they fell in love with this book they're adapting as a movie. So it's about coming in and yes, having your craft and your work ethic, but also just having really figured out who you are as a writer and a person, and continuing to figure out and doing that self-work in both those areas. To me, that is a really appealing writer. So that's someone I want to hire, or someone that if I can't hire, someone I want to recommend for jobs. So for whatever that's worth, it's a very vague answer.
No.
But
Well, because that whole talk about the voice and your own thing. My line is that because a lot of people tell you to write what you know, and my tack on is write what you know, but make it accessible to strangers.
Yeah.
Like you still got to let people in. It might be still you, exploring your inner whatever it is that you're connected to, but it doesn't have to be self-indulgent. There's and then your voice emerges from that if you really are. Yeah, I know it's horribly vague.
It can be a really interesting funhouse mirror version of your life. Like you hear the apocryphal stuff by like J.K. Rowling. It's she is, she had lost a parent that went into Harry Potter. She did grow up in like the bridge school system that kind of in a funhouse mirror way wove its way to Harry Potter. I was in Portugal last fall, and I heard something crazy about how the uniforms in Harry Potter are based on Portuguese school uniforms. They actually have the tie and the collar and the robe. And essentially, J.K. Rowling was dating a Portuguese guy and like kind of just like filed that like weird visual way, and then that's now this iconic thing. It's you go to Universal Studios and there's people of all ages dressed in essentially what are Portuguese school uniforms. So again, it's a sum total of your life, and that is life experience. That's just stuff that you file away, and I think it's just being curious, being aware, and yes, of course, working on your craft, working on yourself as a writer, but also just working on yourself as a human. I was, doing a thing for TV development, and I was going back to the drawing board on something, and I listened to a podcast, and I'll just be really vague, but essentially it was the thing the podcast was about, I was able to put into this script, and it really unlocked a thing. And it's like, yeah, would I have figured out something else if I hadn't listened to a podcast that day? Like, sure, I would have had to, right? But just being curious and wanting to hear more about the world gave me a different tool to put on my tool belt, and that tool ended up being really useful really immediately. Some tools, you wait decades, you never get to use those tools. But I just think being curious and being a little bit insatiable when it comes to just wanting to know more about the world we live in and about how humans navigate this strange planet only makes you a better, stronger writer. It makes your work better and stronger.
I'll tell you mine, then we'll quickly and we'll go.
Sure.
I wrote for a TV soap opera when I was 21 in Australia.
Wow.
And I was working in TV news.
Which one?
Called Neighbours.
Is it like, were you like Margot Robbie's? Like,
yeah, it was Margot Robbie.
Cool,
But it was before her. It was Kylie Minogue and Guy Pearce.
Cool.
And because I'm old. But I had a day job in TV news, and Neighbours I was writing at night time because they would send you the script and you would have 10 days to write out the scenes. And I had a huge crush on the newsreader. I was 21.
Yeah.
Huge crush on the female newsreader, and we hung out, and she didn't want to date me. And she gave me this whole spiel one night, like how I just want to be single, and blah, blah, blah. And then the next day I get the scene breakdown, and Guy Pearce is breaking up with a girl. Guy Pearce's character is breaking up with a girl.
Yeah.
So I put everything she said in that breakup scene, which made it feel thoroughly authentic because it was.
Yeah.
And that was the one they were like, wow, this is a really good scene. You really elevated this. And I was like, yeah. She had no idea. I mean, she didn't know.
I think the last few things I've been hired on, it's been like raw, emotional, painful stuff, like very immediate and present for me. That I'm like, cool, I can't do anything with this except like feel bad, like get over it and make art out of it.
Right. Yeah, being vulnerable in the scripts is really hard.
Yeah.
But really cool. Anyway, does anybody have any questions? Because we could crap on all night. James.
I'm curious about the diversity within the show. Was that written into the scripts themselves, or was it like written open at the scene and the decision was made for everyone?
Yeah, so here's what I knew going in. I knew that Lizzie was white. I knew that her sister would be adopted, that was open. The ethnicity was not specified, and I knew that the brothers, Danny and Matt, would be biological siblings. They have the same mom and dad, but I did not know what their ethnicity was going to be. And then we had actors come in.
The brothers, by the way, one of them was the husband, the dead husband.
Yes, so that's oh my god, I'm terrible at Mamadou's last name. It's Mamadou and it's Giovanna Depo, are the brothers. And yeah, we had actors come in. We had a bunch of actors come in, and knowing that the brothers were going to be biological, we really fell in love with Mamadou and Jovan. And so that meant that yes, that they are both African American black actors, and that Lizzie is white, and that it was going to be an interracial relationship, and just certainly in Los Angeles in 2019, and just that I didn't rewrite the pilot, nor did I rewrite the pilot when Kelly Marie Tran was cast as Jules, her sister, but it was something it was I think identity. You're a diamond, right? Like your identity contains many facets, and so it's just being cognizant of all the facets of these characters, and having a writer's room that reflects the world we live in, the way we have a cast that reflects the world where we live in, and department heads, a crew. I'm very proud of our show, both on screen and off screen, looking like the world I live in. But yeah, it was just kind of knowing once we fell in love with those humans, then it was just, being thoughtful about all the aspects of the identities of the humans we cast going forward as we wrote the first season and the second season. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
So I have a question about how you wrote the script, you have Widow done. How do you deliver it to Brillstein? How do you get it to the producers? What methods would you use in order to get it there?
Right. I did have a manager and an agent at the time.
Okay.
I still do have a manager. I don't have an agent because
The thing.
because of the thing. I mean, some writers still do if you're like a Verve or like
Right.
Abrams.
Sure. I think that's why people reverse the word packaging too, because I heard a development exec say, I walked into a meeting the other day and talked about packaging. Everybody was like, shut up.
Yeah, well, like I'm not going to rewrite history. At the time, it was packaging.
Right, no, I know. Anyway,
Not anymore.
Sorry, carry on.
So I gave the script to my manager and my agent, who both got really excited. By the way, I told them the idea, and based on like the log line alone, they were both like, "Huh, yeah. I mean, if you want to, go for it." Like it was not like a sexy log line, but so I had to actually, I felt it in my gut. I knew that I could show them in a way that you can't. I knew it would take a script versus a log line. So they sent it out pretty relentlessly. My agent and manager both really went to bat hard, really fought for the script. Initially, I think they tried to send it to like some more like showrunnery, like namey producers, like household namey producers. But again, like it just wasn't. I don't think any of those people were going to want to partner with somebody so green and specifically. I think they just didn't like fall in love with the thing, which is totally fine. But it was to answer your question. It was my agent and my manager relentlessly sending it out.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
There's no one on this side. You guys are underrepresenting. So you're the closest one.
Yeah. So if it's not packaging or attaching talent currently, like what are some of the ways an unproven creative could have, some firepower in their corner,
Yeah.
going into general meetings with production companies, producers?
Is it all the script now? Is it actually the
I
script?
think it's largely the script. I think because you've got so many competing platforms, you have people really hungry to make shows that break out of the clutter, shows no one's seen before, or that really feel whatever Hollywood word you want to use, like fresh, original, blah, blah, blah. So I would say it is, I promise this isn't a cop-out answer. This is actually like what I understand to be the case. Like right now, winter of 2019 going into winter of 2020, I think it is about having a script people not only fall in love with, but a script that people really can see breaking out of the clutter and being noisy, which doesn't necessarily mean like soapy or space opera, although it certainly could. I think it just means something people would really talk about. It's something that could garner a really passionate fan base.
Yeah.
And I think from there it is finding a producer who's going to be your firepower. I think
Yeah, it
having.
sounded like you had a great experience with.
I had someone that wanted to make the same show I did and needed to make the show the way I needed to make it. So it was it was the right two people wanting to make the right thing together. And I think it is finding that person. But the thing is, I think yes, it is hard to find that person. You might, to your earlier point, be kissing a lot of frogs. But once you do have that person, then you have a comrade in arms. It's you guys against the world. And so I think it is, to my best understanding of the zeitgeist as it currently stands, I think it is finding that, or creating that script that, all it takes is one, by the way. All it takes is Netflix needing to make this thing, or Apple, or Disney Plus. It doesn't have to be, I've said this a lot, like in other interviews, you only need one date to the prom, right? You don't need 9 people asking you to prom. You need one person. I think especially now, you can do something super duper niche. You only need one bite.
Yeah.
So.
But then I suppose the trick is now, because how do you get it to a producer if you don't have a manager? How do you get it to a manager? So they will send it to a producer. I mean, that's the challenge, because we're all seeing so much content.
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
why are they picking our script?
I would say make friends with assistants. I'd say, I don't know, go to mixers. You're probably going to find a different guest to speak to that.
We have. It's okay. You don't have to answer every question.
No, it's okay. But like, I don't have that literacy. But but that is a great question.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge. Somebody else had their hand up in the back here, and then yes,
Yeah.
and then I think we're gonna wrap up after this.
My question is.
So it has to be a good question. Is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I mean, was this writing for you? Was it motivated by something personal? Was it something tertiary? Did it happen to a friend? Like, I get the impression that this was motivated either by a personal experience or absorbed experience from someone nearby.
Yeah, it was everything. It was that 18 months of my life. It's not my autobiography in a strict sense. I joked a lot in the first season that if this happened my autobiography, I would have written a space opera. Like, truly, I can't imagine making a TV show ripped from every headline of your life, because the machine would just, especially if I mean, like, look, it's such a, I'm trying to think how to say this. The machine would just crush you.
Is your husband alive?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not autobiographical in a
Okay.
strict sense. I can't imagine getting studio notes based off of like a thing that had happened to me beat for beat, moment for moment. That's crazy. But it is extremely personal. The reason I say Funhouse Mirror version is I look at both seasons of the show, the pilot specifically, because I wrote the pilot without a room, and I see my life in every scene. I see it distorted. I see maybe like a Matryoshka doll, a truth hidden inside another truth, hidden inside another truth, so that it's unrecognizable to an outside eye. But for me, all I see is truth there. Then once you get into the first season and second season, I see the truth of my staff in there. So it's my truth hidden inside the truth of my story editor, hidden inside the truth of my co-EP. But it's if it hasn't happened to us specifically, and I would say a lot of it did happen to us specifically, even in a distorted way, it's stuff that is the fabric of our lives. But it's interesting. The reason I'm cagey about, and I've given interviews where I've talked a little bit about like backstory, but the reason I'm cagey about answering that question is this is why I wrote a TV show, not a memoir. It's because I didn't want to actually be in the hot spotlight like I am right now. And, giving personal details, I wanted to hide my truth inside art and let the art speak for itself. So that's a very non-answer, I understand, but it's also why I became a TV writer versus a memoirist.
All right. And on that note, we need to go home. So.